So a bit about what we're doing at AquaMedical. So our target is type 2 diabetes. And I mean, who doesn't know this is a huge problem? Staggering costs, of course, all the complications. But something that I think is really important right now, look, there are more than 60 pharmacologics out there, including all the new GLP-1 drugs. However, this is very important. There is no drug that can halt or reverse the course of the disease. I mean, they basically just control the symptoms and, cover up the symptoms. When you stop the drug, the disease is there. So that's where we come in, because our goal is to actually change the course of type 2 diabetes. And we have a device-based approach to it. It looks like a garden variety upper endoscopy procedure. So here you see the scope going through the esophagus, stomach, into the small bowel. And our product is the catheter you see exiting the scope. And what we do is we deploy a sheet memory basket. And from the center shaft of that basket, we precisely dose hot water vapor. And vapor is like the perfect ablation agent because it has very high energy. It gets uniform coverage into the irregularities, and it ablates to a nice controlled depth into the mucosa. So we get quite far down into the small bowel. You see the ablation effect. We go in later, take a look. It's beautifully healed, normal mucosa. Okay, so the question that comes up here is like, why does this treat diabetes? Right? So actually, it's not surprising at all, because the bariatric surgery procedures like Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, those are for obesity. Right. And those patients, they lose weight over weeks and months. But the next day, like immediately, the diabetes is totally resolved. And they've known that for 50 years. And the reason is those procedures have in common, they bypass a part of the small bowel. So companies said, well, hey, if the small bowel is the secret, what if we make a tube or a sleeve that covers it? The food would bypass. They did it, and they found like similar results. Patients lost weight over time, an immediate improvement in the diabetes. Since then, a company had an idea. They said, well, what if we just do ablation of that part of the small bowel and not resect it? They did. They found some great results. And we're thrilled to report in the last year, we've gotten some really phenomenal results. We're working with, of course, top key opinion leaders in the world in this space. And here we are in our Chile endo suite, 66 patients treated. And here are some results. So this is a glucose finger stick that patients do. That blue line is 28 days before the procedure. And so you can see on the day of the procedure, the day after, this dramatic improvement in finger stick glucose. Wow. The gold standard, though, for diabetes is reduction in hemoglobin A1C. And so here I'll show the trajectory of the three competitors in this space. So here's one company that's showing over 24 weeks, 6 months, a full 1 point reduction in hemoglobin A1C, which is great, like 9.5 to 8.5, for example. Now here's another company, Endogenics, got some really impressive results. One full 1.7 percentage points reduction. Now our Gen 2 device, our advanced procedure, latest results, we're getting 2 full percentage points reduction in hemoglobin A1C, which puts us in the zone of gastric bypass surgery. So think of like a massive several day in the hospital surgery versus a 40-minute outpatient procedure. Right. That's how dramatic the difference is. And here's something that surprised us. We said, well, if our results are so good, what if we take insulin-dependent patients and do our procedure? So we actually took a 20-patient cohort. We said that we're insulin-dependent. We performed our procedure. We stopped the insulin, and we had that whole cohort of 20 patients past 7 months with no insulin, very well-controlled glycemic control. And now, just as of 2 weeks ago, 4 of those patients already are through the pipeline at 12 months. Completely off insulin with no GLP-1 or anything else added. So we're obviously thrilled with those results. Now, if we look at the product differences, how is our product different than theirs? Those products, they have a giant catheter next to an endoscope. So picture a doctor navigating these two things through the patient's mouth, trying to steer it all the way down through the GI. It's very difficult, expert task, hospital-based only. Super expert physician, so a constrained market, right? Yes. And look at ours. So ours, all the doc has to do is to navigate that endoscope, which is steerable, yes, all the way down, and then pop open the catheter, retrieve it, move it, and pop it open. So what it does, it brings it to a completely different universe. So this is the universe of the ambulatory surgery center. Thousands more doctors can perform it because you can be an average GI physician rather than a super expert. So you can basically explode the potential market for this. And we don't need it. We don't need fluoroscopy either, which these need because the catheter. So we have all these advantages versus the other products. Now, we had a rapid fire FDA approval year last year. We got a 510 clearance for a Barrett's, our secondary application. We got an FDA breakthrough device designation. We got an IRB sponsor approval. And the big one is FDA. We just got IDE approval to start treating patients in the US. So we have Mayo Clinic, we have Code, we have UC, University of North Carolina, Honor Health. So these sites are ready to go. We've had publications, I mean, the journals coming through. We have, podium presence in the GI plus the diabetes side. Worldwide, we have very strong IP portfolio. These are our sites we're starting in the US. And that's kind of where we are right now. So we're super excited. I have a meeting this week going to Scottsdale with our investigators in an animal study to prep training for the human trial here. So that's what we're about.
John, that's amazing. I mean, sorry, Lloyd, I called you John by mistake. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks.
Through the scope, no fluoroscopy.
Yep.
ACS, right? Instead of, the long stays in the hospital.
Yep.
And the hemoglobin reduction, pretty significant. Very elegant.
Thank you. Thanks.
Was that basket? Is that a nitinol?
Yeah, exactly. So obviously the space. So it's a nitinol basket. That's it. We started with 2 discs and they kind of deformed, and now we had a full basket. So it keeps that shaft right centered, so we can get the maximum power output, and it's nicely distributed uniformly. So.
Yeah, exactly.
We only spent like 4 years to develop. It looks so simple. And it's like, what the heck? How is this difficult? But it takes 4 years and all the studies, and then our FDA submission was like 5,000 pages. Insane. They say the FDA is supposed to be streamlined and everything.
Right.
And so and back and forth with questions. So it was a joyful day when we got the FDA, the IDE approval.
I'm sure. Lloyd, there was something more recently posted, I think, on your X page about I don't know if it's gut or GUT, how you pronounce it, more gut. Of a kind of a preclinical study there. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Well, we've had, so what's happening in our publication stream, we've had many, obviously you start with, someone's tinkering with it up in the laboratory, and then you have the benchtop, and then you have lean beef models, and then we go to animals. So we have a number, we've had so many animal studies to get the dosimetry right. So some of that was really showing how we're getting, the depth of penetration to be able to get this controlled uniform distribution. And that's really what the animal studies were, to demonstrate, that the nice thing is that the best, how animals will be analogs to humans. So like for heart technology, the sheep is the closest. For GI technology, the pig ends up being the closest analog. So we've done a lot of pig studies, and a lot of it is just to see, can we get uniform depth, control the depth so we don't go too deeply into the mucosa, and so that it's safe. And then we learn, obviously product improvement to be able to manage, get full deployment in the tortuosity of the small bowel, et cetera. There's one thing I didn't mention is that because we're through the scope, we actually can get 4 times longer into the small bowel than the other technologies, because they call it duodenal mucosal ablation. So they get basically the duodenum, but then they have ligament of Treitz. There's a severe tortuosity, and we can get through there. And so we're ablating 4 times longer, which is why we think we're getting the outsized results, because we're more mimicking bariatric surgery. So that's one of the reasons we believe that we're getting these extraordinary results.
Interesting. So you can get further distally, and that's in some cases probably because through the scope, lower profile, and all those
Yes.
wonderful things to allow you
Yeah,
to
exactly.
reach deeper within the anatomy. Okay. And any kind of anatomical vascular approach, if you can go further, you can treat more people, right? And be more effective.
Right. Well, it's funny because some of our investigators, they said, okay, the other technologies, one is a hot water balloon. So they use hot water to ablate the small bowel. And the other one is pulse field ablation. And then ours is obviously is hot water vapor. And one of a number of the investigators say, well, here's the thing. We're all injuring the tissue in similar ways, let's say. And so they think the reason our results are better is just because we're covering more surface area. They said, that's it. They'll get similar results, but you're covering much more of the surface area 4 times longer. That's why you're getting better results. And it'll probably be more durable.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, you mentioned PFA. It's funny. I just did a webinar with a fellow engineer at Boston Scientific. Electrophysiology and the growth of PFA and that whole market. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's good. I mean, it's a good technology, and no doubt.
You can really kind of pinpoint and isolate and, avoid damaging the esophagus and other, nerves and other tissue.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
excellent. Well, can we kind of wrap? This has been amazing, Lloyd. I appreciate it. Can we kind of give us an update on funding? How are you doing on the funding aspect?
Well, it's like my job. I realize, after how many startups that, 90% of my job is really just raising money, right? So, I mean, it's always, you're in one cycle at another.
Yeah.
I think part of it is because it's almost like an 18-month cycle, because the early investors don't want a large amount in to get sort of the crush down effect. So take enough money to get to the milestone to drive your valuation up. So that's we've been in that cycle. So now we are raising a 12 million round, and it's to hit 2 milestones. So the 2 milestones, so we're starting our US pilot. So in fact, we observed one of the other companies hitting these 2 milestones, and they had a huge valuation step up. So the 2 milestones are, one is performing the US pilot of 20 patients is all we need, is 20 patients and a 6 months follow-up. So we'll have both of those completed within 12 months from now. And the second milestone is the FDA IDE approval for our pivotal study. So we've got approval for the pilot study of 20. The pivotal would be like 220 patients. So those 2 milestones. And I'll tell you, because we already have approval for the pilot, the approval for the pivotal is, let's say, almost a slam dunk, right? If we said we'll do exactly the same as the pilot. So that's and it's just the follow-up data on our pilot study. And we expect it to be very similar to the Chile results. In fact, we think it'll be better because the US patients have more compliance than, we'd be interested in talking to anyone that has interest in participating in the rounds. So we do have a lot of interest right now, but we are always looking for good partners. There are good partners, and there are not so good partners too.
Not so good partners. I don't know if you're get into it, but the story about Scott at Fast Wave, his investment partner. I don't know if you've seen any of that.
No, I know Scott. I know Scott
Nelson. Yeah. I guess you can choose the wrong partners too, like you said.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. One of our board members came up with this thing, and when I asked him to join the board, he's like super rich. He's done 4 IPOs. He said, "Lloyd, I'll be happy to join the board, but I have this one rule. It's called the no a-hole rule." He says, "Do you have any of those guys in your company?" I said, "Well, we did have a couple. We had to fire them early on, but they're gone." He says, "Okay, I'm in." So he also calls it the life's too short rule.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good rule. Life is too short to partner with a-holes.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, we're trying to follow that. So anyone that's invested we love to have good partners. I mean, we just love to have good partners
Yes.
too. So, anyway,
All right. Well,
appreciate
hey, Lloyd, this has been a great conversation, fascinating and
Thanks.
elegant technology platform.
Thank you.
Looks like you got, FDA, clinicals, preclinicals, and
Yeah.
funding in line. So really looking forward to following the story here.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the time. I appreciate learning about what you're doing, and you're on the road toward the Joe Rogan experience, aren't you?
Thank you so much. That's a huge accomplishment.
All right. All
Thanks
right.
a lot, Lloyd.